I don't know what to do anymore. I'm so scared and I can't trust anyone. See, I went camping about 3 weekends ago in the Huntsville National Forest in Texas. Me and 3 friends had come home for the weekend, and they were all in college. We usually all got together at least once a year, old friends from high school. We planned to go backpacking deep into the forest, live off of fish and animals that we catch and trap. We had been doing this for a while in Texas and in numerous other places, Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, so we're pretty much used to anything you'd encounter. It was my turn to pick where we went camping, so I chose Huntsville. We drove up there to park our car in a camping parking spot, and we started walking off into the forest. Along the way, we had some laughs and caught up with each other's lives. We walked until it started to get dark, and we set up camp where we stopped in a clearing. Everyone gathered wood to make a fire, and we set our tent up. Then we did what we always do, and try and scare each other with weird stories. Around this time, we started to smell something very faint. It was noticeable, but not overbearing. We couldn't put our finger on what it was, so we just carried on. Mike had to go pee, and he walked off into the forest. But a short time later, he came running back, pee running down his pants like he'd missed really bad. We all immediately laughed and threw some jokes at him. That is, until we noticed that he was as white as snow and was trying to catch his breath. He started screaming for us to follow him, and then ran off back the way he came. We all got serious and went to follow him, not knowing what was going on. We heard a faint scream and crying in the distance, the direction which we were running towards. It was pitch black though. Moving away from the camp, it was pitch black, and Mike had the only flashlight. So at this stage, we didn't have much choice but to follow him, though it was kind of frantic as the flashlight was pointing here and there. The scream got closer, and Mike started to slow down. We then noticed an old, ratty cabin that looked to be abandoned, except for a faint light that we could see from one of the old, mildew-covered windows. The crying was intense. Whoever it was couldn't breathe enough to let out a full yell. We all followed Mike up to the front door, and we could all hear the crying from inside. But as soon as he knocked, it stopped. We all waited and heard really heavy footsteps walking towards a door. There was a giant slam against the door, and the sound of a bolt unlocking. Then nothing. We waited for a bit, knocked a few more times, but still nothing happened. We walked out in the house, and there was no chance that we were leaving each other's sides. I noticed a window, which was a good way up. Alex took a deep breath and asked us to give him a boost up so he could see inside. Mike and I agreed to lift him up to the window. We watched him brush away dirt and webs and place his face against the window to try and see something. There was a quick beat, and then he suddenly started to breathe real fast and let out a loud scream. He then fell from the window, screaming bloody murder as he fell. We all tried to calm him down, but he was hysterical. We went to him, but he started to shake, punch, and kick us off, and then took off towards the camp. None of us wanted to be separated, so we all ran close behind him. We caught up to him quickly, grabbed him, and set him down. The fire was dying out, so I grabbed some nearby wood that we collected and added it to the fire. My hands were shaking, but I had to do something, so I went to Alex and tried to calm him. He wouldn't keep calm. He just kept screaming. He was breathing so hard that he eventually fainted. We were all pretty shaken up by now, and we kept the fire high until sunrise. Periodically, Alex kept waking up, screaming like before. So by sunrise, he was up and he looked catatonic, and he just kept mumbling to himself and whimpering. Mike and I decided to go look at the cabin now that it was daylight. But no matter where we searched, nothing was there. Nothing at all. The distinct smell from last night had now grown to a very strong smell of something dead, something stale. As we headed back to the camping site, we were shocked to find that Alex had chewed into the side of his face and swallowed so much blood that he was stirring up. John was at his back, and he looked like he was about to die from exhaustion. I guess we all looked that way. We didn't sleep that well. But I just didn't notice it until I saw his face. Alex then said quietly that we all had to leave. Now. We started to pack up the tent, and as we did, rain started to pour really heavily. The sky started to grow really dark as well, and Alex started to panic. He grabbed a big stick and yelled at us to leave it, and leave now, or he'd knock us out and drag us out of there himself. Mike started to yell at him, and they both started to brawl. It took us a bit, but we managed to break them up and finish packing. Right after that, though, we didn't waste any time, and we quickly made our way back. After a while, we arrived at a creek we had crossed the previous day. Only it was flooded over now, and the water was moving too fast for us to cross it. Alex started to scream again, yelling at Mike for having taken his time packing up the tent when we could have gotten out of there. This went on for a bit, until we finally convinced Alex to calm down and tell us what he had seen. He said as soon as he had put his face to the glass, a face on the other side did the same thing, and it had started to smile, really big. It had dark eyes and a dark mouth that was much bigger than Alex's. As the smile got as large as it could, a giant shadow behind it swung something down and sliced his face off. The face was stuck to the window, and he said he started to laugh quietly as it slid down. Mike, still ticked off, and beginning to freak out, started to argue with him again. We eventually forced him to continue, and we followed the creek looking for a way to cross. As we walked, we started to see toys floating in the creek. Really old toys, like old Barbie dolls and baby dolls. This wasn't like any trash floating in that creek, though. This was a lot of them, a lot of dolls. One washed towards the side, and Mike picked it up. It had some kind of voice chip that was dying, and started to say some gurgling words we couldn't understand, followed by its sad excuse for laughter. And then it started to sound like it was whispering. He thought the batteries must have been dying, and he threw it away. We kept going, and the sun was starting to set. Alex was freaking out more as we went along, and was whimpering and breathing heavily. We all started to see shadows move behind trees, something we all thought was BS, until we just kept seeing more of them. It was barely light out, and we stopped as we saw the cabin right in front of us, the same one from the night before. None of us knew what to think, until Mike spoke up, saying, "This is bull. I'm just going in there." Alex pleaded for him to stop. We all did. We all just wanted to go home. Mike told us to just go away and do our own thing. He didn't care anymore, and said that it was just all bull and our minds playing tricks on us like before. It was then we started to hear more of the same baby dolls as before, laughing, whispering, and trying to sing. Unnerved, we started to move forward past the cabin. We just kept pushing forward, hoping to get around it as fast as we could. We smelled something dead in the air, something stale, the same something as before. As we passed, we started to hear something crying, something screaming, and yet we just kept moving. We eventually found a crossing and left the woods. We rushed back to our vehicle and leapt in. It was pitch black by this time, yet we just drove. We were not staying in that woods any longer. We were about to get on the 45 to Houston, but the road was under construction and couldn't be accessed. The signs pointed to a detour, which we took, yet it turned out to be a small, bumpy dirt road leading back into the woods. As we were on that detour, we saw a young girl come up to us. She looked like she was in trouble, and she was young and pretty. We slowed down, and she approached the passenger side door. She must have been really high on something, or she was really beaten up. It's clearly evident based on her appearance. Alex didn't roll down the window, nor did he open the door. She reached for the handle, and he immediately locked the door. What surprised us next was that she put her face on the window and started to smile, really big. We floored it. Alex started to cry and scream again, and we were all breathing heavily. We drove until we got out of that detour and onto a street that took us to 45, and we rode it until we got home. When we got back to my apartment, we didn't know what to say, so we just all quietly broke apart and went our separate ways. Mike messaged me a bit later and said he was going back. I tried to convince him not to, but all he said was it was in our own minds and that we were just making it up. I think he just wanted to prove that he wasn't scared. I can smell that stench everywhere now, and I don't go out anymore. I just stay in and don't answer the door. Last week, everyone I met was acting really strange. People that I had known for a long time acted like total strangers. My dad, when I went to his place to eat supper with him, he just watched me. Strangely. He didn't say a word the whole time, but I kept asking him, "What's wrong?" He only shook his head in response. When I was leaving to go home, I turned to wave, and I saw that my dad had big black eyes and an open mouth that looked like he was in pain. I started to walk back towards the door, but he shut it and locked it. I knocked and knocked. No response, nothing. I called him, and the phone was disconnected. I called the police, but halfway through the questions they were asking me, the connection started to fade into static. I could hear a faint mumbling, singing, and laughing. Mike has completely vanished. There is not even a record of him being alive. When I called Alex's house, they talk to me like I'm some kind of salesman or stranger. They say they don't know any Alex, and to please stop calling. Alex's mother was the one who told me that. I can't get a hold of John either. Someone knocked on my door, and when I went to look, I saw a face completely covering the peephole. A giant smile started to form. I jumped back and called the cops again. But instead of it turning to static, they got really strange. "Sir, are you affected by any drugs at the moment?" "No." "Are you coming home anytime soon?" "Excuse me?" "Come home." And then the call ended. My mail slot started to swing, and it swings every now and then. Someone is sliding pieces of baby dolls through it. I try to call people every now and then, but all I could hear is static, and the bad baby dolls and noises and crying and screaming. My TV is broken. When I go to the bathroom, I can hear it on. The only thing I can think of is that I must be going insane. Whoever lives above me started to scream in pain and crying deeply all the time. I hear giant footsteps from their apartment, and I hear bangs and something falling on the ground. From the neighbors to the right of my apartment, I hear what sounds like a baby that never gets tended to. It also sounds like a doll whose batteries are dying. My phone has been ringing now, and it's Alex, but he's telling me things in a language that I have never heard, nor can even manage to repeat. I used to keep getting emails of black and white pictures, but now I can't even access my email. Someone knocked on the door, and then they slammed against it. I heard the bolts unlocking one by one, and I ran over to make sure all of them were locked back. I then sat down, crying. What do I do? What do I do? My electricity keeps dimming. My water, sinks, baths, shower, they all smell like something died. I keep seeing a shadow of someone behind me, raising something in the air. When I see that, I just take off to the other side of the apartment with my head against the wall. I have boarded my windows shut, but someone started throwing rocks against them. I can't tell who it is. I boarded my bedroom in. I can hear crying and screaming from there. And right now, while I'm writing this, I can see the reflection of the computer screen of some smiling shadow behind me.